Good morning, everyone. Welcome to College Coffee Talk. Pearl and Andy Lockwood talking about all things college, getting into college, paying for college, should you go to college. Good morning, Pearl.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, everybody.
And welcome to Pearl's Kitchen.
Part of it.
Yes. Well, if you're having a cup of coffee, Pearl, I know you just made something for yourself. Let's have a synchronized sip. 1, 2, 3.
Cheers.
Going with Duncan from next door to the office where I have a house account.
I'm going with the house coffee from the house.
With your icon.
Yep.
Okay. A little narcissistic, but
yes.
Put it down.
Wait,
you see, Pearl, it's great that you have a cartoon, Pearl. It's great. Shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. So today's episode is mainly about kind of eavesdropping on a conversation I had yesterday with a family that came in to talk about potentially working with us as in our college advisory service. She is a class of 2026 child who is meaning that she's about to embark on her senior year of high school and hasn't really started on the college applications yet and all that. So the conversation went pretty well until it didn't. So I'm going to talk about that because I think it's pretty instructive. But first, Pearl, why don't you give us a little update on, I guess, what's happening in the world of financial aid, because the applications will be coming up before everyone realizes that, October 1st. And now is the time to start prepping if you haven't already, although it's probably something that nobody wants to think about, paying for college. But give us the executive summary of what's happening in your world as you prepare to help families, 400 families, give or take, file their FAFSA, their CSS profile, you name it.
Okay, so right alongside the application for admissions now being available for the class of, 26, 27, class of 26 for the application school year, aid year 26, 27. And right alongside that is also the financial aid application, which we strongly encourage you to file whether you need money or whether you want some kind of discount off of the cost of attendance. So you file for a variety of reasons. You want to do it to preserve loans, ability to apply for loans and avail yourself of loans. You want to potentially file so that you can demonstrate financial strength. You may want to file. So there are many, many reasons to file.
To get merit.
Now, to get merit money, that's another big one. There are some schools that will not even consider you for merit aid if you have not filed the financial aid forms, oddly enough. But in any case, that's true. So you're better off covering your bases by filing. Okay. So this time of year, we're now in mid-August. I am in the process of gathering the following from my clients. The 2024 tax return, which is the operative base tax return. You must use it. Is not your option. You must use it on both the FAFSA and the CSS profile. You also need to get a handle on your assets, where they are, what they are, how much you have, where you have it saved. And I will only simply say that while we are tied to the 2024 tax return, assets need to be true as of the time you file, which means between now and the time you file your forms, you potentially have the ability to improve your eligibility by reallocating your assets if that applies to your situation. So at this time, we're gathering the list of schools from our applicants, along with their application status, meaning how are they applying to a particular school? Is it early action, early decision, or regular decision? Because that governs when the priority financial aid deadline is for that student at that school. Okay, so there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of different deadlines to remember. My own personal practice is once I get a list of schools, however many long, I look at the status and the particular school and I go through every school and what the earliest priority financial aid deadline is of the whole list. And then my practices with my clients is to file to all of the schools before that earliest priority financial aid deadline. So to answer a lurking question I sometimes get, well, what if I didn't submit my application for admission yet? It's fine. It's okay. These are separate processes that eventually connect in the end, should your students be admitted to that school.
Okay.
Okay.
May I ask a question that I know somebody has?
Sure.
Just because I'm mentally projecting this.
Okay.
What if they haven't done their 2024 tax returns yet and they're on extension?
So if you're on extension, I typically that extension ends in October unless you're going to be late. I would encourage you to get them filed ASAP because a school is not going to finalize any decision until they have actually submitted tax return information. So your whole financial aid status will just be pending until you get that completed. It's important to get that completed.
Yeah, I would even suggest that if you can't get it done, at least file a provisional return or an actual, and then you can go back and amend it.
That's right. That's exactly true.
Otherwise, you're out of luck.
Right. Exactly. They don't care that you're on extension. If you want money this year from this school, you got to be on time and get your taxes filed on time for this reason. Okay. So timeline. Many priority financial aid deadlines for early action, early decision begin November 1st, sometimes in a rare occasion, October 15th.
Right.
The forms altogether become available November 1st. I'm sorry, October 1st. October 1st is when the FAFSA and the CSS profile become available, okay, in October 1st, 2025 is when the forms for the 26-27 school year and aid year become available, which means don't do it now. Because if you're doing it now, you're filing forms for the wrong aid year. Okay. October 1st, the forms become available. At that point, you can start filing financial aid forms to all of the schools on your list. Yes, you can go back at a later time should you decide to add additional schools to your list. And in fact, asterisk, please do not forget to update me if I'm handling forms. Or
is that Amazon?
It isn't.
Is that Jeff Bezos?
It is not. Nope, it's more local. Anyway.
Come on, Pearl.
What? I'm sorry about that, folks. We all have dogs, don't you?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe going into the basement studio would have been a better idea. Now that we contemplate that.
Perhaps.
Anyway, so you're going through the timing. Everything comes out October 1st.
Right.
So the deadlines. The schools tell you when the deadlines are. You can't miss any deadlines. You file everything first.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then numerous requirements happen after you file forms. I typically call that the beginning of the process, not really the end of the process, so right. It may seem. At that point, each of the schools is triggered to respond to whatever you've put in your financial aid application. And some schools will ask you no additional questions, but other schools will ask you many other questions and ask you to supply additional documents depending on the information you supply. That back and forth is expected to continue until the school has everything it needs from you in order to prepare a financial aid award package for your student. Your student will, at some point, depending on how they've applied to the school, hear an admissions decision first, and then some days or weeks after that admissions decision being yes, that student will receive a financial aid award letter that will likely be in the school's portal that the student will, upon applying to the school, be assigned to create login credentials to that school's website, where they will be expected to periodically check and see if there is anything missing, be it for admissions or financial aid. And that's, how you'll know if something's missing. But ultimately, that's where your financial aid award letter is likely to be lurking. And
So what's the timing of receiving these awards? Like, let's say you're applying regular decision or you're applying early decision. Like, when do the actual financial aid awards come out versus scholarship awards, the non-financial aid, but
right.
non-need-based aid?
Okay, so what typically happens with, I'll start from the other way, from the non-need-based aids or merit-based awards typically come in with the application for, I'm sorry, with the admissions letter, the admissions decision letter. Congratulations. You have been accepted to blah, 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 blah school, and we are pleased to have awarded you the Presidential Merit Scholarship for a total of $60,000, $15,000 each year, blah, 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 guaranteed as long as you keep your GPA. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, that is how that goes. And then separate and apart, but including it, a few days to a few weeks after that time, and I'll get into that. So if you're early decision or early action, typically you will hear back, and each school's different and should provide this information, anywhere from middle December to towards end of January on early action, early decision. So sometime a few days or a few weeks after you hear that early decision, early action, yes, you should be looking out for a financial aid award letter package.
So just to pick up on that. So early decision is the quote unquote binding one, but it's really not. And we'll talk about that some other time. But you usually find out whether you get it or not at the beginning to middle of December, and then you should get within that week a need-based aid award. But early action, the one that's not quote unquote binding, that can also come by the end of the fall semester, or might come in January, like Pearl said. But the need-based awards for those typically don't come until April or the end. You might get a merit award along with, you usually do, if you're going to get one, it comes either simultaneously or a few days after the early action acceptance letter. But the need-based aid award does not come until sometimes March or April.
Yeah.
In addition, the other comment I want to make is that for early action, the whole premise behind it is, apply early, you'll find out early, it'll take the stress out of this very stressful process. The reality is that because so many kids applied last year, 3.9 million high school grads was the peak that we've ever been at, plus common application, having more and more colleges participate, plus test optional policies. There was sort of a perfect storm of a huge influx of applications, including early actions, which resulted in colleges deferring 50 to 80% of the early action applicants because they didn't have time to read the applications. Most admissions officers, the number of admissions officers who are staffing these colleges has not increased because they don't have the budgets to hire more people, and there aren't any more spots either. So it's instead of taking the stress out of the process, I think it arguably increased the stress in the process.
I would agree. And right, what the old expectations were of when you could expect these awards has kind of changed a little bit. Yep. And it's gotten dragged out, I've noticed. Anyway, turning things back over to you, Andy.
What voice was that?
My anchor woman voice.
Oh, okay.
With the shit.
Right. Well, thank you. Let's go to weather and sports. And at the top of the hour, okay, so I'm going to, instead of playing along with you, I'm going to try.
You can play along with me.
I'm going to try in uncharacteristically delicate and subtle speaking without revealing any confidences, describe a meeting that I had yesterday right here in this very office. And the premise of the meeting was a mom and dad and a child who may or may not be female or male. So, because I'm trying not to reveal any confidences, came in to discuss potentially working with us to help with typical stuff. People come to us to help with the college list, to go through the applications and the essays and plan out the extracurriculars, sometimes as early as 9th grade, maybe occasionally 8th grade. So in this case, 2026 grad, about to start her senior year, late in the process in our world, but for normal America, not late in the process. We have a weird business. And the gist of it was, the meeting was going along pretty well. They were telling me about the child was telling me about various stuff, grades, scores, college list, etc. And one of the colleges, the child's top choice college, happened to be like a lot of kids, a pretty hard school to get into. And then I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about your courses that you signed up for next year. And one of the things I noticed was that, relatively speaking, it wasn't as rigorous. This is just off the top of my head. I don't always do this because we use software usually to help really pinpoint this. But my comment to her was, or him, was, I think that you need to take an extra AP class because the kids you're competing with at this college, a lot of them have probably taken 10 to 12. Maybe that's the average. If I were to guess, the average number somewhere around there, based on everyone that he or she would be competing with from all over the country, not just the local high school. And I was met with, well, I have other things that are going to make me stand out on this application. I have this and I have that. And some of them are circumstances, some of them were other activities and all that. And my response was, yeah, those are great things. And I agree with you that they help you make the case about your character, but you still have to have the academic profile to give you a fair shot at getting in based on your competition. So just quickly, I say this a lot, so I'll just go over this pretty fast here. 60% of the application is academic considerations, meaning your GPA, although there's so much grade inflation that's come to not be as important as it used to be. In this child's case, the GPA was probably below the median, so that wasn't a strength. Then it's SAT or ACT scores, which are much more heavily relied on because of the grade inflation. Admissions officers would rather see them not only because of the grade inflation, but really because they are better predictors of how well a student will do in college. And the third factor, academically speaking, is rigor. How many advanced classes, which usually means AP classes. Sometimes it means IB. I'm not talking about college level. I'm not talking about other types of classes, AP or IB. In this child's case, she was relatively at a deficit compared to the kids that she was competing with also. So for 3 out of 3 of the academic components, that's 60%, she was at a lower level. And one of the ways that she could potentially partially remediate that was by taking a harder class in her senior year coming up. And she still had the opportunity, but she was saying, well, I don't want to do that. I won't be able to take a lunch. I want whatever, which are all valid reasons. Because I'm not judging, and I really don't care where she goes to college. I'm just trying to match up her goals with expectations and advice to help her achieve those goals. And I said, well, that's your choice, of course, but you're going to be fighting with one hand tied behind your back in terms of competing with people who've taken a lot more rigorous courses than you have over your senior year. And then she sort of said, like, well, or he said, well, I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay, I'm not sure you should even hire us because I don't want to give you a whole bunch of advice in addition to this. We're just meeting for the first time and you not take it, because then your mom and dad are going to feel like they're just wasting money, and we're not cheap because we're only as good as the advice that we give if it's taken. It's a two-way street. It's like if a doctor advised a 350-pound obese patient to stop eating red meat, donuts, and quit smoking cigarettes, and then the patient didn't do that, is the doctor really responsible for that patient having a heart attack or other health problems? Of course not. So it was sort of I didn't really expect the meeting to go that way. I do think the parents appreciated my advice. I hope they did. I hope they weren't offended by it. But it seemed like she wanted one thing, but she wasn't willing to do what it takes to get in there, or she was just trying to convince herself that, yeah, even though I don't have the GPA quite there and I don't have these other attributes, I still should get in because I'm, president of some club or something. And again, I'm not discounting the extracurriculars that she's involved in, which were pretty solid overall. But in terms of what admissions officers care about, not her, it's pretty clear that there was a deficiency. So that's the behind the scenes look at some of my adventures this weekend. Let's see if we have any questions. Here's one from Dawn. Hey, Lockwoods. When applying early decision to reach schools, is it better to apply as early as possible or RD? When applying regular decision to reach schools, is it better to apply as early as possible or wait until the deadline to send in the application? I don't know if it really matters because they're not going to look at that application until all of them have come in by deadline. There is some argument that if you throw in your applications sooner, you're going to be mixed up with the try-hard, high-achieving kids who also do the same type of thing. But I think that's more of a case for rolling admissions, not regular decision. So rolling admissions is when, as soon as the applications open up, you can send in your application. Regular decision is a deadline, usually the beginning of January. And I don't think any admissions officers will look at those until after that deadline is passed. So I don't see any advantage to doing that other than just getting it off your plate. Kind of like what Pearl's saying about getting all the financial aid applications done. You might as well just get them in, and that's one less thing to worry about. But also, Pearl, you mentioned, right, that's when things start. You've got to monitor everything, that portal, not just for financial aid, but for admissions.
Absolutely.
Follow-ups. Yeah. All right. Any other questions here? Here's one from Eric. Brand name paralysis often clouds men's minds, like the shadow clouded men's minds too. There's one of our jokes is that everyone applies to the same 20 colleges, at each high school. The rear window sticker colleges is what I call them. And most of those colleges are quality schools, but there definitely is life beyond the rear window sticker universe of colleges. So thanks for that. All right, Pearl, any other bits of wit and wisdom or other things that are happening that you feel like people need to be aware of?
Okay. So the comment I always make this time of year is it's mid-August. Don't squander your time. This is the time you should be completing, as cushy as summer feels and as abundant that time feels. It isn't. It is coming to a close. 1 month from now, you'll be back in school, and for many sooner. And some maybe have even started in the south of
Florida kids and Georgia kids back in school.
So what's going to happen is you forget how much work is involved in an ordinary high school semester. But what I'm here to also remind you of is that this fall semester of your senior year counts, and counts big time. It matters. Frequently, we've seen admissions decisions turn on the looks of the fall senior semester grades. We have seen schools ask for the early decision, early action candidates for mid-fall semester grades from the guidance counselor because they're looking to see maybe to put you in a yes or a no. And we've seen admissions decisions come out like a few days after that. So my point is you don't want to be clogging up your time and energy and resources in the fall once school starts with your application for admissions and financial aid items that you have the availability of to do right now and get it out of the way and completed for, I don't care how you're applying, get it done for all your schools. If you plan on applying to all these schools, complete the work for these applications in August.
Good way to end. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time. Pearl, good advice.
Thank you.
All right,
Same.
try to keep those dogs under control next week.
Will do. Sorry about that.
Okay, bye.
Have a great week, everybody.